breakup, whether it was nasty or not, whether it was a mutual breakup where you agree to disagree, you just decide to move your separate ways, or it might be after the death of a spouse, whether it's a husband, it didn't have to be a divorce, it didn't have to be a separation, it didn't have to be a death, but you're deciding to move on. Probably you have been sitting your idda and your idda is over. That's for the ladies. Men do not have idda. That is the waiting period. And then off the back of that, you are ready to start moving on. Of course, this is coming off the back of conversations that we have had. And only to let you know, if you've just joined us, that we are live on 75 W Radio. We are also live on Ummah Connected, and we are streaming live, of course, on YouTube and Zoom. And in the conversation tonight, as we talk about moving on, the way let's talk with Kassim, Kayira, where the program works is it is by you and with you. We'll be listening into particular experiences from the different people. It might be coming off a difficult situation, a difficult episode where you had probably a very nasty breakup, an end to a relationship that had existed, either brought about by court. So you went through, a lengthy court session where you ended up, deciding to move on. It might just have been a mutual separation where you think, hello, darling, I think we've come so far, but probably our journey ends here. We just need to move separate ways. It might be coming off a bereavement, having one. And the question we're asking tonight is, when is it easier for women? Sometimes it might be that the thought is men can quickly get over situations and move on, as opposed to women. Maybe you think actually women can actually move on much faster. There are times when there is a thought process which goes to imagine that probably men find it much easier to move on because they don't show emotions. You might be wrong. It might be that men can actually find partners much more quicker, but it doesn't mean they have moved on. It's about whether they're still continuing to live in the past. And tonight, I think we'll be trying to delve into that particular area, that particular territory, and you will be helping us to sort of navigate this particular situation. It might be coming off the back of, very, like we say, the very difficult divorce process when people have to go through the courts and so on. It might even be, a relationship, you get to a point where you think, what, I think I've had enough. It's time to try something else. How you manage to navigate from this particular past and try to carve out a new future is one area that we might find very interesting. How do you build up the courage? There are times that you have to carry the weight, of the relationship. You are either keeping the children, and that stops you. Not hear anything, still the same problem, I can't hear anything. You might just have to try. Can someone probably just go in the chat room, please, and help Umar see how he might be able to connect into the conversation? So we are sort of saying, how do you start moving on? People sometimes find it difficult. Some people will stay longer before they can actually move on. Some people are much faster in moving on. What could facilitate this process? Is it all right for someone just to continue probably blaming themselves for a relationship breakup and therefore which keeps them unable to be able to find a new place? In Islam or with Muslims, as opposed to say Christians, we do not have anything like till death doth us part, especially in situations where, for instance, you do in that situation, religion is very clear, you are supposed to live a comfortable, fulfilling life. The moment you find that that life has been, affected, you definitely have to find a way of moving on. How do you do that? Would it be through prayer? Are there particular practical sessions that might help a person? In fact, within religion, for example, because religious institutions are very important, within religious institutions, is there a mechanism that helps people to be able to prepare them, for the journey next? It's quite easy when someone has lost someone, when people are going through a difficult divorce, there'll be also, for example, the divorce is complete with from a religious perspective that will help this person now to be able to navigate a new life. And that is absolutely important. So tonight, inshallah, we'll be trying to hear particular experiences. It might be people that you know, it might be even yourself. And we're trying to sort of see, how do I navigate this kind of unfamiliar territory? If you've been hurt, especially in a relationship, does it affect how you get into the next relationship? Are you too cautious? Are you, so watchful that you are really concerned about who you get on with because you're worried from the past experience that probably now you're much wiser than you were before, and therefore you'll be able to do that. Let's have that conversation tonight. Opening up tonight, it is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim, Kayira. It's your global community conversation. It's 13 minutes past 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. That's 13 minutes past 11 o'clock in Uganda. We are talking, how easy is it to move on? Is it easier for men? Is it easier for women? Do you find that there are particular barriers that actually make it so difficult? And I can see a message from Farid Antege who says, I don't know if it's my connection, but Sheikh Keke's audio too sounds a bit crackly. Yes, it might be crackly, but alhamdulillah, so far I was hearing that so far it's been good. We'll try to maintain it as best as we can. But we are opening some probably unfamiliar to others. How did you move on? How easy was it? Is it easier for men? Is it easier for women? Or does it probably depend on the circumstances? There are particular men who are very damaged from previous relationships that it becomes very difficult now to move on. Or is it easier, probably for women because they can actually sort of reattach their feelings to a new person and just move on like nothing happened in the past? Why don't we just open the mics and get the conversation going? Ajat Sarah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As usual, I will come to you and let's open this particular conversation coming off how easy is it to move on? Is it easier for men? Is it easier for women? But let's start with the actual topic now, moving on. How does this sound to you?
For me, I don't know whether there is anything like really moving on, because sometimes I think whether it's life after divorce or life after someone's spouse has died, I think life really sucks. And I wouldn't think that it's really difficult. The word move on may apply to a few, but not all people have gone through that kind of process. I think people do cover up. Yes, you may get, if by moving on you mean getting married to another person, it doesn't mean that all the emotional attachment is gone or how bad you feel because you lost a spouse has gone or disappeared. So I don't know whether there is truth in that word of moving on, because I think if you've lived with someone for a long time and probably you have children, I don't know how best you can detach and have a life without them. May be a bit difficult. Are you still there?
Not possible then, but because you cannot. Yes, I'm here and I'm saying, is it difficult? Is there a possibility that, for example, because you cannot just forget the past, that it might start affecting how you relate in the new relationship?
I think it might be difficult, but I'm speaking from a personal
Hello, kind of. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You do. There is sometimes I can hear, sometimes you're breaking. That is what I can say. But if you can hear me, that's okay. Your bandwidth is really low.
I can hear you louder.
The problem, yeah. Yeah, I was saying that I would talk from my own personal experience, having lost my husband. I still struggle after like almost 15 years. Yeah, so and mainly because I had children with him, and he's left me all the responsibilities. So it can be really difficult. You can't think about your own life when you have other people to look after and you have undertaken a responsibility which belonged to someone else. So that can really cause a lot of problems for a woman who's widowed. And also those who have been divorced. It may also depend who has initiated the divorce. Because when someone says, oh, I'm going to divorce someone, if they're the ones who are making the decision, it might be a bit lighter for them than the person who is going to be affected by the decision. So it all really depends on to the circumstances of how it is happening and why it is happening. Yeah, that would be my take.
I think actually that's the same feeling that Faida Antege said, because she says, I wouldn't say it's easier for any men or women, but rather depends on an individual. I also don't believe in the terminology moving on. Maybe we can say, do men handle the situation better than women or vice versa, but actually not moving on. Would you agree to that, Sajid?
I would, because I've seen men who have married and they would always bring in their ex-wives, you know, they always compare. There is that comparison. If someone did something that is not up to the standards of the woman he had, they always talk about them. Yeah, they would say, oh, so-and-so used to do better. Oh, she loved my children. And you wonder, why did you leave them in the first place? You know, they are telling someone new that they have, and that can cause a lot of anger and maybe hatred for the woman who is new and may not even like the children, because all the time the husband will be always talking about the ex, comparing whether it's the looks, whether the way he's being treated, or the way you look after the children, the way you keep the house. So they are still in there. So I don't think that would be moving on, really. Unless moving on doesn't mean forgetting someone and not.
So you can. Is it possible to move on though? So because from your submission, you seem to be saying there's nothing like ever moving on. You can decide to be with a new person and so on, but you can never move on, because moving on might mean having to forget the other person. But don't you need that at least to be able sometimes to move on? Especially if it wasn't, for example, a divorce. It was maybe, a death. Husband died, wife died, and then you have to get into a new life situation.
Maybe if someone you've gotten is much better than the one you had. If you get married and you get better treatment, or you were looked up after better than the person you had, maybe that could cause, may help you forget someone, but also depends on the standards. Where are you with that person, the new person? Yeah, because if they're not meeting, they're not at the same level, or the relationship is lower than what you anticipated, then you will always be thinking about your past relationship.
Now, I come to this now even more cautiously, because I'm thinking, by moving on, you're sort of saying, I had a past. It may have been a nasty past. It may have been a very good past, but it is in the past. So for you to be able to accept your new normal means that's the only way, that's where you need to be, the word moving on. You being able to now start a new life and feel like you're in a new place. I think it is important probably for someone to either psychologically prepare themselves to be able to move on, and therefore it is possible to move on, but only depending on what you're moving away from and what you're moving into.
Yeah, that's what I would think, because mainly if you're struggling, and even struggling more than you did struggle before, you ought to be thinking about even trying to make a U-turn. People have made U-turns. They've gotten back to people they had left before. Right. Yeah, if life goes on well and it's so smooth, you might forget. But if things get rough and they were better, I think there is a tendency of someone really feeling like they would rather have their ex, or wish that their husband had not died. I would think so, but that's my own take. Anyone else could have something else to say. Yeah.
No, definitely, and I think we will be hearing from them. But you say it's been 15 years since you lost your spouse, and even then you still feel like you still carry the burden, their own ones. What would it take for you probably now to think I'm now ready to move on? Is it about children growing up or so? What would it take?
And there comes a time when it's a bit too late. If you've clocked 50, chances are you'll never move on at all. Yeah, time just goes by and passes without you knowing, and before you know it,
Well,
yeah,
too late for what?
for everything. How do you see yourself getting a new partner, having been on your own for quite a long time? It's not easy. Yeah. Yeah. And also the market, drops with women. The older you become, the less market you have. You can see the young ones also struggling to get men. What about you, an older person? It's not easy, really. Yeah.
But then, just like they say with wine, we don't drink it as Muslims at least, because they say, the older the better, and therefore it may be that actually you're getting to that time, and that's when it matters most.
And
You
that's
find
when
that actually in those years you need the companionship a lot more, and that's where probably you might find someone.
Do you
You actually
realize
need
that
to live the rest of
when the children grow older, they tend to think that that's how life has to be, They wouldn't want you to have a man when you've been on your own for a long time. How do you even start to explain it? They would say, oh, she used to be on her own without a problem. Now what's happening? Yeah, they get in, you see, they take control. They're like they own you and they have to do.
Probably I've shared this before, I've shared this before, but there was a particular situation where children were refusing. They did not understand why their mom was getting another man, like years after, they're strongly. We are giving our mom everything.
True.
Why would she want to get married? And they were using everything without really understanding the concept. One lady just brings them to the side and says, you are saying you're giving your mom everything. Are you sure about that? How about her physiological needs? And the kids suddenly realized they were not actually giving everything. It gets to that point. They would be in a better position even to understand that than before that.
Yeah. And when they talk about everything, I think what they mean is financial support. For them, they think once they give you financial support, then everything is done. Yeah. They don't care about your physical needs. They don't care about your sexual needs. They don't care about your emotional needs. Yeah. One thrives on a lot of other needs, you see. It's not just financial support, but mainly children think that at a certain age, or even it doesn't even matter whether you've been there for quite a long time without their dad. It's there like once dad is gone, that's it for you, mom. You can't ever get into a relationship. So if you have to do it, it has to be secret. You don't want them to know about it. But how do you live a life like that? It's not, it's draining.
Especially when you have a God to fear. You cannot just probably... Yes.
Yeah, with God, fearing God, you can be married. You know what they call what do they call it? There's a term in UK they use to show someone is married, but no one knows about it. Misiali, is it Misiali?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you go, but with anyway, so you find a person, a friend, or probably a person who can there come in and become your witness, and then you go ahead and have your nikah and have. Actually, there's a Swahili word which is very, very funny. It's called tusaidiane. It's tusaidiane, but it's like let's help each other. And quite often, what happens, and this unfortunately, I mean, it's a haram relationship, but it's always men who work so hard and they work so long and they are away from home. And then you have the wife just comes into service there. So it's a sort of a symbiotic relationship that has no strings attached to it, but someone has to get serviced somehow, and then someone just goes away. Haram in all perspectives, but existent so much because there is need for that. And it's actually vice versa as well. There are women who work too hard away. Their husbands are so available. The next thing is someone will find an assistant to help at this in those situations.
Oh dear.
Misiar marriage it is. Yes, Sajid Sarah, thank you very much. Let's just bring in
You're
someone else
welcome.
to the conversation so we can widen out the conversation. Sheikh Musa Rugimwa, Haji Musa Rugimwa, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Musa Rugimwa, are you there? Hello, Mr. Musa Sheikh Rugimwa, are you there? Okay, I'll try and drop in someone. Jeanette, remember, if you've just joined us, we are talking about moving on, the ability to move on. That is moving from a past relationship and going into a new relationship, getting a new life for yourself. And it's either a man or it's a woman, either it's following a but you have to move on, getting into a new relationship. And we're asking, how easy is it to move on? And from Hajjat Sarah, who we've just been chatting to, it's definitely not, well, a straightforward answer. It is possible, but it would take a bit of work to get it working. But is it easier for men than it is easier for women? Men. Jeanette, are you there? Hello, Jeanette, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Mr. Kassim.
Oh, hello, Jeanette.
Hello, how are you? Thank
hello
you so
there,
much.
how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Pleasure to have you. And Catherine Salia, be coming to you. I've seen your hand is up. Let's just get Jeanette in here. Jeanette, the conversation we are having is the usual interesting conversation. We are talking about moving on, and some people are saying it's not easy to move on. How easy is it to move on from a relationship and then trying to make the best of a new relationship? What would it take?
Yes, I would like to thank the lady who was chatting to you. I think she really put it well. And me, I would just put in the culture aspect of it. Where I would think it's very difficult, very, very hard. I don't want to even think about it. But thinking back of our parents back in Uganda, where most of us come from, my mom was widowed when she was still strong, and our dad was killed in 1980s. So I can imagine the poor lady stayed on by herself, and the children grew up, got married, got their children, and she stayed alone until she passed away. So probably the culture barrier is also there. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine living alone now that I'm married and have a husband and children, and if he's not there and the children are gone, how do I see myself living on? It is not easy. But of course, there's that Namwandu, I think that's what in Uganda. Namwandu was not allowed to get married, I think, or to remarry. Or in my, we originally from Rwanda. So you can imagine, I didn't see anybody who lost husband in the generation of my mom having another man at all. So, but I think they
is that having another man officially? Is that having another man officially or not?
Officially, like getting married again. Yes.
All right. Because so quite often what happens is while they don't get remarried.
Yes.
While they don't get remarried, they have some side peoples who come into service. So quietly, it's a quiet thing, especially within Rwandan culture. Someone has, someone who just comes there, like Kivazo, and they just run it quietly. It's very, very overt. It's a very rather covert. It's quiet, and then someone manages to leave somehow because it feels like taboo to get remarried in some instances.
Yeah, but again, that's not a good life because, as the Hajjat said, how is that possible? it's just to service, but there are other things involved as well. You need to stay with someone, you need to move with someone, you need to plan, you need to live together, you need to be physical, talking together. Instead of coming sneaking into my bedroom and coming and servicing and going, no, let it. Yeah.
You want
So
more than that. You want the companionship. You want the
exactly.
physical touch. You want to be able to sit with someone and have a conversation. Yes.
Yes.
So how do you
I
think
never
your
thought
mother, for example, managed to cope?
Yeah. So I think the generation of my parents, nobody, I don't remember anybody who lost their husband, maybe due to illness or war or anything. I don't remember them having another husband. But the men got married. So the men were allowed to marry, which is not nice.
So you're almost saying now it's easier for men to move on because we are using that word sparingly now, considering, at least in that particular instance from your explanation, it's much easier for men to move on than it is for women.
Yes, in our culture, yes, in our cultures, as we've seen.
So if you are to speak to your mother now, given knowing what you know now, and the difficulties, you cannot imagine having lived with a man, living without a man. What sort of conversation, what sort of advice would you? The generation is sort of a past generation, but some of them are still there as widowed and still living. You find the kind of difficult life that they are living through. What sort of advice, or what would be the kind of conversation that you can have with your mother?
If she was around, I would
regarding her situation.
Now that you seem
to appreciate it more.
If she was still alive, I would get an old man for her.
That's very kind. Yes. No, and it's it's very satisfying for many. They get into that age and they actually want to be able to get someone coming in. No, thank you very much, Janet. I think stay there. We might just come back to you. Let's just hear what Catherine has to say now, joining into the conversation. Catherine, Sally, good evening. It should be good evening where you are. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm fine, thank you. It's good to have you back.
Okay. Yes. I would like to compare moving on in terms of Uganda and in the UK, because I've lived in both countries. I would like to say that in Uganda, men move on better than the women. Men tend to have the culture on their side. Men tend to have rights and employment on their side in terms of finances. So moving on may not be that difficult. But when it comes to the woman in Uganda, sometimes the woman has not worked. So maybe she has been unemployed. She has no income. And then when they separate, she's left with the kids. And as you know, our legal system doesn't work that great. So getting child, support can be very difficult or non-existent. Mm-hmm. So the women are less favorable in terms of moving on in Uganda than in the UK. In the UK, yes, I have split from my ex. Unfortunately, we had lost a child. But comparing to my other friends, and women tend to move on better in the UK because we keep the home. We keep the benefits. That's if you have kids. Yes. We tend to have friends that support us in our whatever endeavors we're trying to move on with. But the men, and to be honest with you, I tend to work with men because I've seen the suffering. Men in the UK tend to become homeless. Mm. They tend to lose their rights. They tend to lose their manhood in terms of there's some kind of when a man leaves his home, or he asks to leave his home, or the police come and pick him and ask him to leave his home, his confidence is gone. Maybe he doesn't even know his rights in terms of finding accommodation. He tends to be lost. So men tend to lose out more in the UK than in Uganda. The other thing is culture. So men tend to come with their culture of being in charge. Unfortunately, here it may not work that great. I've been fortunate enough that I found somebody who appreciates, culture and change of circumstances, and it has worked out great. But men sometimes are so rigid that they cannot accommodate moving on, holding on to their culture, as well as accommodating the new changes. So men find it a struggle.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something I really work with, that our African men, especially Ugandan men, struggle, and I really feel for them.
So, Catherine, when you say you managed to get away from your ex, and was it a mutual breakup? Was it nasty? Was it a nasty breakup? And how easy was it for you?
It was a nasty breakup.
Have they managed to move on? Probably too many questions in one.
It was a nasty
breakup.
It was a nasty breakup, but I was in a better position,
right,
than him. And that's why I say that I reflected back that he was in a worse situation, and there are men out there who fell in the same situation that I had the home, and I had to ask him to leave. And he had no home, so he was homeless. And he didn't know his rights. And he didn't know where to go. And he had no support. But I had support. And from that experience, although that's what happened, I really work on helping out our Ugandan men to know their rights, to get a home, to get support. It's really a sad scenario. Because
Catherine,
he was
actually, it would be very good to get your contact, because within the community, these are things that are happening on a daily basis, actually out of homes and out of options, unaware, unsure, ignorant of where they can run to. I think with such programs, we shouldn't just do programs where we come and just talk and just leave things here. Please, if you don't mind, if you could put your contact in the chat, and we'll take it up, so that in case there is any man out there, struggling, unaware of their rights, these things are happening out there, like continuously, very, very much. And therefore, please, it would be interesting just to hear, if there is any help that we can provide, any little help, of course. Every little helps, as Tesco would wish to say. It would be good just to know that we can have a sort of a fallback plan. Now, considering that nasty new person into your life, as it seems now you do have that person in your life who understands you, as you say.
Yes, the thing is, my past relationship, there was a struggle of culture and ego. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you very well, Catherine.
Yes, in my past relationship,
we can hear you loud and clear.
There was a culture clash and also ego among ourselves. There was competition other than living together. In the second relationship, we have respect, no ego, and negotiation. Although we keep our culture, that do respect him as a man. He's the head of the household. But in the previous relationship, that didn't happen. But just as I said, I really feel for the men. I work in housing. I give housing advice. And if there's any man out there who is homeless and needs my support, I'll give my contacts out.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Catherine. It's good to know that we can have somewhere to run to, especially for those out of options. We are unaware of any options that are available. and my question to you then was, how easy was it for you to trust a new person into your life, considering the nasty breakup that you had with the previous one? Because people initially, everybody who approaches someone, they will always come in with a very beautiful face. They are very caring. They are very understanding. They'll be texting every few minutes to find out how you are until they get you. Once the easy was it for you to find that confidence, to see that this was a person that I could move with again?
I work in social care. I see the services offered in the UK. So for 2 years, I went for counseling because I didn't have the family support I would have had back in Uganda.
Oh, right.
I was on my own.
Mm.
And I also was suffering from bereavement and then also from, losing divorce. So I decided to make use of the services I was offering my clients. So I said, why not go for counseling? So when I met my present husband, I did talk through my baggage and what his baggage was. And we had to make what they call, what is the deal breaker? What can I live with and what can you live with?
Yes.
So I think that's why it's worked. We've been together 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Oh dear, that's quite a story. That's a very, very strong one. Farid and Tege, stay there, Catherine. I'm still with you. Don't go off. Farid and Tege here says in the chat room, in the Filipino culture and legal systems, there is no divorce and no remarrying. You only marry or get married once. So if tragedy befalls you, you are stuck there forever. So there's no place to run to. She's saying also, wow, big up, Catherine, for the strong story. Leila says, Madam Speaker, I like you already. I think that was quite something. So you are applying, actually, it's not just the theory of it, you've brought the practice into it, Catherine. Ego versus culture, you mentioned that. What about women? What if the other way around, sister Catherine? Are you only helping men? So there are women actually who find themselves probably in situations that are that hard. Since you're in housing, is there a way that you also help women? Because it's coming that I think you're using on the experience of statistics where more men seem to be thrown out of homes than it is for women. Catherine?
Yes, because the thing is, when you call the police, they will ask the gentleman to leave. Even if I have a friend who was beating the husband, but when the police would arrive, they will ask the husband to leave. So most times,
without even listening to the man.
Pardon?
Without even listening to the man's story, they would just ask the man to leave.
Yes, they'll ask the man to leave. That's how it is in the UK. That when they arrive, or if you decide, the other thing is, men tend to come and live with you without asking their rights. Like, can I be on the tenants agreement? Can I be on the mortgage? I'm paying something. So they tend to try to have the easy way out, or not knowing their rights. Because if I ask you, can I be on your tenants agreement? I'm paying something here. So nobody is going to ask me to leave. The council will have to find you an accommodation. But if you haven't asked that woman, I need to be on your tenant agreement, I need to be on that mortgage deed, they tend to lose out. So for me, I have a soft heart for the men. They don't know most times, or they're scared to ask, or they want to have the other thing, they want to have an easy ride. They're staying here maybe and just not paying that much. But at the end of the day, they are the losers. Because if the police come, they ask him, are you on the tenants agreement? No. So say, oh, you need to leave. Are you on the mortgage deed? No, you need to leave. So he ends up homeless. So it's something that I have an understanding. I've gone through it. I work with it. I experience it. And also I've seen lots of men homeless. African men, but also our Ugandan men homeless.
So,
and they don't know where to go.
So Catherine, if it's about moving on, do you think it is easier for men to move on than it is for women in that instance, given the experience that you've had
easier for the
with different people?
It's easier for the women. They have some kind of stability. They have some kind of support than the men. Because if you're homeless, you cannot move on, honestly. If you're sleeping on somebody's
sort out your homelessness, you've already lost it.
Yes, you're homeless. Maybe you have a job and sleeping on somebody's sofa, but sooner or later you'll be asked to leave. So you're unstable already.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Catherine. Always inspirational. And please, if you can just put your number in the chat room, we will write that number. It might come in handy at some point. And these are some of the things that actually the benefits of now I think we are in a better position to know what's going on. Farida, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ayat Sar, I think your hand is up. Let me hear you, and then I go to Farida and take it. Maybe I can just.
I just wanted to make a comment about if someone leaves the house doesn't mean they have moved on. I think moving on would mean someone to be emotionally detached from someone. So you may pack your bags, but doesn't mean you have now moved on, or you may get into another relationship. But if you're still emotionally stuck with someone, you haven't moved on. Mm-hmm. That's what I would think. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there a way of pleading with someone to let your heart go? Because I think, like with relationships, there are times you love someone so much, so deep, the breakup, and you have to break up. Is there a way you can ask them to release you?
I don't think someone is holding your heart. It's you who has given them your heart. You have to fight and take it back because they don't have it. You the one who's giving it out.
It might be a plea, Hajat Sarah. It might be a plea. Someone takes your heart and you can't even get it back. You are in so deep, it becomes so difficult to sort of, say you're just going to run back and repossess it.
And if it's a woman who's got your heart, they really enjoy it. They would never give it back to you, much as they may ask you to leave. Because we have those control tendencies, whereby we just want to have you in our pockets if we can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So how do I get my heart back? Because that's it might be actually the only thing that is holding me from moving.
You need to go and see a counselor or a psychologist to help you get it back, or work on yourself. Yeah, you have to get yourself involved into other activities, try and heal yourself, but don't expect anyone who has divorced you to really think about you. Everyone looks after themselves. And we have some selfish tendencies that the more you yarn about things, the more we feel happier. So you'll be in trouble if you don't look after yourself.
So you're almost saying now we should be very cautious when we get loving, because you start worrying if you have to repossess your heart, and it takes so much to be able to repossess it. I think that actually might be an obstacle to moving on.
Yeah, the thing is,
if you invested so much into a relationship and you are in so deep, it becomes so difficult to come out.
Yeah, the problem with love is there is no control. When you're totally in love, you lose control. You can't say that I'm going to love someone so much and then have a bit out of it. Yeah, you're in it, and you don't even think there will be a heartbreak or there will be a breakup. You're in it, and there is no way you can control yourself. But if things get worse, you have to try and maybe accept that this is what it is. It takes a bit of time, but you have to accept these new circumstances and try and heal. It's not easy. Some people never do. But what do you do? That's what you have to work with at the end of the day.
Yes, Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Let's get in a man and here. We've just been hearing from the women. No topic is out of bounds. It's just the way we treat it, with respect, with decency, but managing still to speak about it. Musa Rugemu, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today? We are talking about moving on.
I'm great, alhamdulillah. And my contribution was that what has been referred to as mistreatment. There's no yardstick. Because what one considers as unbearable mistreatment, you'd find that some people would consider it bearable. If that makes sense, you'd find a man saying, hey, I divorced because my husband does not help me wash the dishes, he doesn't help me cook, doesn't help me tidy the house. And then you'd find some other lady who is willing to bear all those, saying, hey, as long as he comes back home, as long as he doesn't drink, I can bear all those other pains. And also cultural differences, like I wrote in the chat. For example, I had that Maasai ladies, they don't mind being smacked and kicked and punched. Apparently, that's what they expect from a man. So if a man is basically, because if a man is too nice to them, it makes them anxious and nervous because they are like
metaphorical though, Musa.
Because what I heard is that they're anxiously looking to at that moment of, hey, when are the punches coming in? Something must be wrong with this man. Can you believe it's been a year since he last punched me or slapped me? Just ring. But then when you come to some other cultures, slapping a woman is grounds for divorce. So does that make sense?
Musa, could it be that the smacking or the punching is actually metaphorical and not the physical, not in that physical sense? Because amongst the Baganda, it is there as well. But it's not about punching. It's about being with them, like in a conjugal relationship. That's what they mean. Could it be that with the Maasai, probably it has been misinterpreted?
But I had in Busoga, it happens too. Yeah, obviously, they began.
Yes, and Busoga actually is not also
I had that too. And for example, you'd find like in some cultures where a woman expects you to have a second wife at some age. And if they don't see you mentioning it, it makes them nervous. Is this man doing it secretly? But in some other, for some other ladies, that's grounds for divorce. If you see what I mean. So yeah, so my point is
regarding moving on. Regarding moving on, is it easier for men or is it easier for women? Like looking through the glass, the glass window, looking in. Do you think it's easier for men to move on or is it easier for women?
I think there is no such a thing as mutual agreement or mutual separation. There's no such a thing as, I don't believe, two people can come together or can sit down and say, hey, I think let's mutually agree to separate. My belief is, I think, of course, there's always an upper hand. There's one who is pulling and one who would wish to stay. Okay, it could be percentage-wise. So whoever had an upper hand in the separation, okay, they would probably move on faster than whoever did not have an upper hand in the separation. And of course, it goes also without saying that one of the points that probably was mentioned before, that because sometimes it also depends upon who's going to be better off than the other. as a result of divorce. Because if we had a 3-bedroom house like it is here, I had a friend, by the way, just a small story. I'm not gonna mention names, but in Northampton, this guy went with him to university, did a master, PhD, and whatever. Then he was a lecturer in Northampton. Now he had so he brought over his wife from Uganda over here, and but then the wife had moved on. So what the wife did, of course, after a couple of years, once the wife sorted out her papers, she decided to bring her boyfriend from Uganda over here. So then she filed for divorce, and because she was a lady, she took over the house. And because it was a house which my friend Alan, I've mentioned the name, had to pay the mortgage because they had 3 kids. So legally, she stayed in the house, which Alan was paying the mortgage for. Okay, and Alan had to leave. So he stayed on the streets for some time, and he just got fed up. So then finally, he had to decided to marry a Zimbabwean lady. And eventually he got so frustrated seeing someone living in his mortgage that he had been paying for almost 10, 15 years. So he just decided to leave the country. And went and got a job in Kenya, in Nairobi University. So
So for such a person, it would take a long time for them to move on.
For the lady, maybe she's moved on and she's much
getting
happier.
married.
Yeah, for the lady, she was much happier. I mean, this is an example where the lady should be so happy. She's moved on. She's got a new husband. She's got the kids. And for him as a man, he was so traumatized that he could not even bear staying in the UK. He had to go back to Africa. Went back to went back to university in Nairobi, and he left the country because of the trauma that the psychological torture that he had.
So in your view, it's much easier. How easy it is for one to move on is dependent on the circumstances of the breakup, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And who the breakup favors. Because in this case, it favored the lady who got a free house. Like a free house. Mortgage nearly paid off. Yep. Mortgage nearly paid off. So she was easier. So she moved on. But then him.
Yeah. No, that can be absolutely traumatizing.
Yeah. In fact, which ties in with the story
with the means to move on.
Which ties in with the discussion which you had recently, if you remember, with Ashraf Semogedere, 2 weeks ago. That's when, sometimes people resort to, because imagine if he had that little, because imagine if he was such a guy because he got to a situation where realized if it was this gun culture in the US where you find someone picks up a gun and just decides to shoot everyone.
Just takes matters in their own hands, yes. All right. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Musa Rugema, for sharing that. Fantastic. I think it's sort of taking us into new territory, actually, that probably we should be assessing and analyzing in that context. Ali Buwembo, are you there? Ali Buwembo, thank you very much, Mr. Musa Rugema.
Yes, Sheikh. Salam alaikum. Yes, Sheikh. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Hey, Sheikh.
Salam. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
How is your day?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. MashaAllah.
Good. Well, we are talking about moving on. either coming from a divorce, a difficult divorce, even a mutual divorce where you just decide to go your separate ways, or probably a bereavement. Husband has died or wife has died. How easy is it to move on? And probably, is it easier for men or is it easier for women? What's your take?
Oh, that's a very tricky topic and thing to take. I've just had the last speaker who has just said that it depends who is benefiting in this situation, who initiates the divorce, or if we talk about the divorce, who initiates the divorce. So to me, another thing which I could think, it depends also what was involved in the marriage. Like now the mortgage is there, one, the children are there, those are involved. So it depends how attachment, women tend to use children as a shield. And because of that, it's going to hold the man to move on, because men love the children. I've been saying this even on different forums. What men want three things. Men want to money, and money will get them a nice woman, the women they love, and in those women, they will get children they want. So if children are involved in this relationship, a man is not going to move on so easily. But a woman can move on. But a man is going to hold back. Every time he wants to move on, even if he goes to another relationship, he's going to come back looking for his children. So that means, to me, a man will move out slowly than the woman who is going. The woman will move on faster, because what the woman wants is another happiness, another someone who's giving her a cuddle, who thinks that, oh, you are the queen, you are this. So a woman can just look very near, not looking far. Woman might not even care what kind of man I'm bringing into my children. Now, like an example of our friend who has just told us about the situation of his friend. You come, someone brings you here, you have 3 children from this man, but you're still thinking about a boyfriend who's not even a father of these children, and you feel comfortable even to take someone in his house. If this man is very clever, could say, okay, you're not taking someone in his house, let's go and rent somewhere. But the woman is not thinking that far. For him, he's just thinking, she's selfish and thinking her love only, not thinking about the children.
About the
don't think about, yeah. So that means because of the children involved also, any things which are attached, maybe the mortgage, the children, a man is going to move on slowly. It's because it's going to be hurting him. But a woman can move on faster. That's what I could think. I'm sure the women.
I'm sure the women on the forum in the conversation now will have a say about that. You'll definitely be hearing it very soon.
Of course, I know they will come. They will come.
Some people will come for you, piling like bricks. And when it comes to emotions, it's about how we deal with our emotions. Here in the chat room, it says some people may want to move on, but the friends they both share with their ex may be constantly telling them stuff, about their ex that may keep annoying them. Telling them stuff that may keep annoying them. Creating anger that may stop them from moving on. Yeah.
Sheikh, one example I have is I have a friend. I have a very close friend who had a very close friend who had 2 women. But the second one was very young, who was always partying, social media, blah, blah. And this friend of mine had already moved on. He was a bit aging, in his late 40s. He was trying to control this lady who was in maybe a late 20s. Don't do this. Then he bought the lady even a car. And he was renting for this lady a flat, nice flat back in Uganda. But by the time he decided, let me leave this lady. What he did, he didn't, because the flat was renting, so he said, okay, if you want to stay in the flat, you can pay it for yourself. If you want, you move on. But he took the car away. Then I asked him, why did you take the car there? You gave it to, you bought it for him. Then he said, no. If I come and if I'm driving around and I find this lady driving this car and there's another man or driving it or another man in that car, I'll knock them and I'll kill them. I'll knock them down. So let me take the thing which my initiative. So that's why those are the things which give you attachment. Because some people, even like if it was in Uganda, you cannot sleep in my house even if I'm in that mortgage because of a mortgage. You cannot sleep there. If I fail, I'll put petrol on it and I burn it. I don't care. How can you bring a man in my house? You understand? So men are not going to move on easily. If there are any things which are attached. But women, they don't care how many children they've had with you, how much, they will just go like wind. So that's what I can say, Sheikh.
They just go into a relationship. All right, thank you very much, Adibo. I'm sure the women are going to have a say.
Of course, I'm expecting them to come.
That's exactly what. So she says, Amina as iPhone says, Assalamu alaikum. That's exactly what men do to women in Africa. So it's sort of a reversal punishment, that what men do to women back in Africa, the women now sort of reciprocate once they get to Europe because the law would be on their side. Musa Bugemwa says, that is harsh, Ali Wembo. That is knocking them or burning the house, putting petrol to the house. You'd rather fight. Thank you very much, Ali. And let's just widen out the conversation now. Remember, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. It's just 8 minutes past 9 o'clock in the United Kingdom, and that will be 8 minutes past midnight in East Africa, in Uganda, for that matter. Very interesting conversation so far, trying to find out, and we are all talking about moving on, the ability to leave a relationship in the past and then being able to move on. But I'm also trying to station in the context of, it shouldn't just be about the nasty breakup. It might be just like we fall in love, that you actually fall out of love. You get to a situation where you've had probably enough, and it should be allowed. It shouldn't just be taken lightly, but when it happens, I think it should be respected. There are times you'll get to a situation where you no longer feel the person. And I think it would be very wrong factors holding you down, the mortgage, the children. Yet you would want to have a fulfilling life. Because being married is half your religion, at least in the context of Islam, it's half your religion. If you're going to be dealing with half your religion in a manner that is sort of demeaning for you, or you are unable to fulfill the life that you're supposed to have, I think that's not a life worth having. So probably emotionally, we need to be thinking about, our ability to move on from this situation. How do you prepare yourself psychologically to get into a new relationship? You've been hurt so badly. You've gone through these experiences. You are so cautious about how you get into the next. Could it be that this person, because every man, everyone there can be in life, yet until you get them into that house, until you share that bed, until you share that house, you do not know anything about these people. What could there be emotionally? Like how much of the emotional baggage, and very important to mention here as well, there's a mistake that women make, and I would like to hear your take, ladies out there. Stella, I'll be coming to you so that we can try and delve a little bit into this. There's a big mistake that women tend to do. You get into a new relationship, we are talking about moving on. The first thing you do, ex, men do not want to hear about the ex. It's really a very painful experience. If the ladies here, you didn't know it, now you know it. You can hear it from a man. No man wants to hear the emotion. I think I just thought I was talking about it, and Catherine was talking about the emotional baggage that you're carrying into the new relationship. Coming to talk about your ex, and you're talking about how you broke up, but there are times when there's just way too much information about your past relationship that the person doesn't want to know. In the current generation, it even gets worse. Someone is not talking about one ex, but their ex exes, you know, like they're X, and you think about how many exes are going to be there. That can be detrimental to a relationship. Ladies out there, this is for you. Please do not talk about your past relationships to a new man, to a potential man that you're on. Actually, that might become an impediment to moving on, if anything. Stella, welcome to the conversation. Hello, Stella. Hello, Stella. Good evening. Hi, Stella. Are you there? If you can unmute yourself, please, if you are in a position. If not in a position to speak, that will be understandable. Just let us know. Stella, are you there? A dear longish one here from Amina's iPhone who says, I believe there is nothing like moving on, whether you're separated or divorced in good or bad terms. You will always remember that person. It might be a good thing or bad thing you remember about that person, but you have to choose what is better for you in life. You can choose to remain in the past or put on a brave face and carry on. Quite interesting from Amina's iPhone there. Stella, are you there? Did Stella just disappear or is she on? Right, let's try somebody else while we're trying to get Stella back into the conversation. Laila, you are there. You have been listening into the conversation from start. Laila, I'll come to you just to get a sort of a gist into the depth of moving on. Laila, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, Laila, are you there? It's gone quiet. Hi, Laila, are you there? Are you able to speak? Okay, I'll try WIDOWHOOD. Just to be sure that I have everybody on. Can you hear me? It's gone quiet. WIDOWHOOD, are you there? Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you, Sheikh Keke.
Right. So it's people muted now, unable to speak, shying away from the conversation. Let's just try. WIDOWHOOD, are you there? Assalamu alaikum. Maybe not in a position to speak, and so is Laila. I'll come to Kayira Mayanja. Always see the name, and then she's always very quiet in there. Hello, Kayira. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, Kayira.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi
How are you today?
Good, yes. Usually my mom is always on, but I found myself also here. But I usually come as my Indian Bisanz Abdullah, but today is my mom.
Okay.
Yeah, but alhamdulillah.
Oh yes, I saw the Mayanja Bisanz. It was on actually at the start there, and then
yes, I was there. Then when I said driving.
Good to have you on. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Yes. Okay, so we are talking about moving on and how easy it is to move on. How easy is it to move on from a relationship, either bereavement or breaking up, whether nastily or mutually?
For sure, this topic is so complicated and like so tough, especially when it involves with children. It's the hardest part of making a decision both ways, breaking up and moving forward and leave the kids struggling, stranded right there. They get so confused whereby they don't know which side to go. They don't know which things to do. They need both of us as parents in any way, physically, mentally, spiritually, in any way. Like it's like they need us. Like, but I know sometimes you ask something like if someone has passed on, then there are things God has brought something you cannot avoid. You have to go with anything, like what God has brought, you just go with it. I'm sorry with the kids that are here. So basically, but kids don't that like
yes, they are an interesting background noise. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Yes, but if God has not brought like death between parents, people shouldn't break up no matter what. They should try harder. One thing I found out, just excuse me 1 second. Please, can you Kayira? Okay, give it to me. Okay, thank you. No, I'm not giving it to you too. Okay, okay. No. Here, first go finish up. I'll give it to you.
That's a very interesting anecdote there. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm back. I'm back now.
No, it's perfectly fine. Go ahead.
Yes. One thing I have found out that I think also we as the, let me say, Black people or African people should do. One thing we have seen in white people is that they might not be loving each other. They might be living each other. They might be living in one house, but they have separated. But one thing they have in common to bring up kids, especially when they're younger. By the time when they're like on college level, official college, that's when they separate completely and they saw each other. But they do things secretly, not showing our kids. They are there for the kids, they support them, they take them to activities, they take them to school, financial and everything. But as long as the kids get to college, that's when everything's done. Like, you know what? We have to go, we have to separate from each other. I know things are hard to sustain or to maintain, but there's a way where we can come up like, you know what? We have to bring up our kids. Another thing I should mention is that most of the time, if you've seen kids that especially like in USA, kids that have not gone to school, they're struggling, you would see these kids like the mom is sleeping. The kids they need their father to wake up to take them to school, for example. Those kids, you find them, we call them projects. They live in big houses, apartments. You find reminding each other because they're staying in there. The father is sleeping, doesn't wake up because no effort. The mother maybe used drugs or the father. It's both ways. You find these kids that don't do anything. At the end, you find kids. Here, you want to say hi? You find kids they don't doing anything.
Hello.
So you find. Say hi.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, you find that. Oh, hello there. You're right.
So. Okay, Kayira. Okay, Kayira. Okay. Thank you. Come. Again, I would tell you.
So you're saying in those families you find there's the drugs involved?
Yes. So basically, if you look at it like you find yourself whereby these kids they don't have support in other ways. So basically, the big apartments, they call them projects. So you find a neighbor's kids marrying the other neighbor's kids because they're going in the same category. But what brings all that?
Uh-oh. It's getting serious now. Hello, Mayanja. Okay, well, Mayanja tries to sort out the kids. Aisha Baleteriwa, are you there? Are you fine to speak? Assalamu alaikum, Aisha. Hello, Aisha.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah.
We are talking about moving on and how easy it is to move on if you've had a breakup of a relationship, either mutually or a nasty breakup, or even loss of a spouse. How easy do you think it is to move on? And is it easier for men or is it easier for women?
I think it's 50-50. It's not very easy if you've got children. Because it holds you back for both of you, even if you've moved on. I mean, you'll always think about the kids. If you're a man or if you're a woman, you'll always anyway, most cases, women stay with their kids. So men move on, but I don't think they move on 100%. They are held back because of the children, because of what they've left behind. Even if it's nasty, even if it's been easy, even if it's, but I mean, It's not very easy, I must say.
What,
but the
what
other
does it
side,
take? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
On the other side is a gentleman who commented and said, oh, he would burn the house, do this, do that. I think that's not right, because, I mean, you cannot just say you're going to burn out the house because this person has moved on with, he's in your house or he's taking the mortgage. Think about the kids that you've left, the three of them, you know? If you have to give up sacrifice for your children, that's what I would say to him.
And emotionally, how much, what would it take? What sort of codes does someone needs to enter to sort of find a way into your heart if you're going to move on? What would be the things that actually are important to you that would allow the person to move on, considering that's what we're trying to see?
Emotionally, it's not very easy because, I mean, it depends on the attachment and how you've ended your relationship. It's quite easy for ladies if you really pushed and you feel like you've done enough and you're tired. Yeah, you can move on and you won't be emotional. You will only say, yeah, let me move on, let me go on, let me try myself and, make it up to the end. Like, yeah. But otherwise, I don't know about men because I'm not them. To myself, yeah, I would think it's quite easy for me if I've made up my mind and I've decided that that's enough. Enough is enough. So I find it's quite tough though, because you're just beginning a new life and you think about what you've lost or what you've had, what you've wasted the time, everything. But I mean, if you've made up your mind as a lady, yeah, you move on, you keep strong. And if you can't, maybe you find some people, or if you have support from your friends, not friends like family, parents, yeah, speak to them, or you can look out for any guidance from other people, like counseling.
What would it take though? I mean, other than the counseling side of things, there are times when you say in your heart and you're saying, if someone does this, they've got my attention. And because we're talking about moving on, it's that ability to sort of say, excuse me, I had a nasty relationship in the past. I did not have this ABCD. If I'm to get this ABCD, then I'm really ready to move on. I'm really ready to have someone new in my life. There are particular things that are important to a person. And that's probably what I'm trying to probe into, to see what would it take for a person, you've been in this kind of difficult situation, but you have to move on. Excuse me, the cough is getting worse. So what would it take? What would it be for you that would actually make it important, make it matter? I don't know if my question is clear.
It is clear, but
you'd rather not.
Of course, you would want if you left the nasty relationship, you want a better relationship, but you have to look around and say, okay, I'm not gonna have everything. Let me say, you just have to be specific and say, what do I need? Love, care, this, that. Can I get it? Yeah, and then you take that. You can't have 100% like you expected because you didn't have it in the previous marriage. So I don't think you're gonna get it. So you just have to move with some bits. If you got in a relationship with another man, you just think of, okay, is this man gonna help me out with this or that? Is gonna love my kids? Is he gonna be supportive, loving, caring? That's what you would look out for me. If that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And actually, Catherine refers to them as they are called the deal breakers. Once she gets the deal breaker, then it's fodder. It's ready to sort of move on. You've touched the right chords, and that pushes you now to get into a new relationship. Thank you very, very much, Aisha. By the way, before you go, to whom is it easier to move on? Is it easier for men to move on, or is it easier for women?
Depends who wants to move on, but I think it's easier for women. Women are easier to move on because, I mean, they always have the support for everyone, because even if you went where or everyone would sympathize with a woman, first of all, just in case you have kids, everyone would be sympathizing with you. So I find women have more shelter than men. Women would move on easily than men, to me.
All right. Okay. I think that the general consensus, even some men were saying it's easier for women to move on. It looks like it's becoming quite increasingly there. I would have thought that because men emotionally maybe can sort of, go quite quickly. But from what I'm hearing, it looks like men will take a bit of time before they can actually, like move on. And moving on is not just the physical movement. There's the emotional attachment that comes with that, which has to be put into consideration. Thank you very, very much, Aisha. Let's see Joy. Hello, Joy. Good evening. Joy Mutesi. Hello, Joy.
Hi everyone. Thank you.
Oh, hi,
This
Joy.
topic
How are you
has been good. I think most of the points I wanted to say have been shared.
Yes.
It's really difficult for people to move on, especially when there's children involved. And it's true, the emotion of and the attachment. I think I agree with them. Most of you, that even if you go, there'll still be those emotions, even in years to come. What you have shared, it could be a short, but it will still have an impact in your life. But sometimes we have to let go. Not that the emotions will go, but sometimes you have to let go, especially when there's risks involved. We have to know when to let go and when to hold on.
And what would it take to get into a new relationship then? So you let go because the circumstances demand that. You want to move on, you want to get into a new life. What would it take? Is it psychological? It might be physiological, it might be physical. What would it take for you to sort of get that big push?
I think most of our people is that we do not acknowledge counseling. But counseling is a great healer. We tend to think it's for these people, but actually it's for everyone. And it's it's usually better to speak to a professional than to seek advice from friends, because the friends usually give you from, what can I say? You don't know. A friend or a relative is a friend, it's a relative. They also don't have that professional bit of it. So a professional will be treating you just like a professional, and they will be telling you they have enough knowledge, and they will be sharing exactly what they have learned, and they will help you talk through the problem rather than go to a friend or a family member.
Right.
Yeah, and whatever you tell a professional remains with the professional. You have emptied or you have shared, but you are sharing with a professional who is not going to bring it back out here. The problem when you share with family and friends, you think you're saying it here. I'm saying it to you now, but tomorrow I will hear it somewhere else, or it might even go back to the other person, and the person comes back to me. But a professional, it's gonna be a professional. That's it. It's like going to a doctor. Whatever I share with the doctor, it's gonna remain in the doctor's records.
Yes.
So I would suggest that people really seek professional help. Counseling is quite expensive, but it's worth it. It heals you emotionally.
And I think Hajat Sarah mentions here that you need to take into account your mental well-being and take steps to look after yourself. Because quite often now, I mean, we've spoken about the children, we've spoken about the property, but then sometimes we tend to forget about ourselves, the emotional, the state of mind, the mental state of mind itself, which is going to help actually for you to be even able to handle the properties and the children. You need to be alive. You need to be in the right mental state to be able to do that. You think it is important that we should look after ourselves. Many people don't seem to do that. Joy? I think you
Yes,
muted
that's very true. People forget about their mental status, and it's very, very important. When you go to a professional, that the professional will deal with all that, and they can even redirect you to somebody. What they can't deal with, they will identify and redirect you to somebody else. If you come to me as a family member or a friend, even me, I may have my own struggles that I have failed to deal with.
Yes.
Yeah. So I may not be very strong, because sometimes when you look at people, I may see you, Kassim, and say, oh, Kassim is strong. He's happy. He's everything. He's got it. He's got all his package together. But
Yeah.
we all have our own struggles that people know nothing about.
Absolutely.
But if I go to a professional, even if the professional has their own struggles, they still have the professional bit in them. They don't know me, so they're going to help me professionally.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very, very much, Joy, for that contribution. If you've just joined us, remember the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we are live on 75W Radio. We are live on Umma Connect, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom, where this conversation is taking place at the moment. Welcome to all those who have just joined us. We are talking about moving on, relationships, and what it actually takes. I think the one area that I haven't actually felt, I feel that we have been able to cover a lot of mileage just in terms of the extra baggage. But there's the emotional side of things, how you psychologically need to prepare yourself. And I think Sarah just touched a little bit on it, where she was talking about, your mental state of mind. How do you start preparing yourself mentally to start getting into a new relationship? You had probably a nasty breakup. You had someone you trusted so much, you loved them so much, and then you were disappointed. How do you start moving forward? How do you prepare yourself psychologically? What is that particular button that someone would need to touch for you to be ready now to get back into being a person, into being yourself, into getting happiness? Sometimes it's about, quite often people say, marry your friends, because even when you have problems with a relationship, at least your friendship might be able to hold you together. But what is that actually you need that would help you to be able to move on? And I think I can see a hand from Catherine Sally. Come back, Catherine. You have the mic. Hi, Catherine. Go ahead. And I can see Sheikh Abbas Njuchi. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll talk to you shortly, Sheikh Abbas. Let's hear from Catherine. Catherine, go ahead, please. Catherine, your hand was up.
Yeah, I just want. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I just wanted to say that there are certain things that can help you move on positively, whatever the circumstances. And one of them is your personality. Are you optimistic or pessimistic? As a person in your life, are you optimistic or are you pessimistic? So that helps a lot. If you're optimistic, you find solution, whatever the circumstances. If you're pessimistic, then you will see the worst in every scenario. I put in my comments about when you have a good personality and you have support, it adds up. But even if you didn't have the support, you're most likely to move on positively. But if you're pessimistic, even if you had the support, the finances, the home security, you may not make it.
Does that not work with the amount of damage, the amount of damage that has been done? We were talking about someone coming. You actually brought in the example of a breakup where an African man has been used to this kind of respect and his ego has been hurt so badly that now, whether you're positive or negative, sometimes the weight of the damage that has been caused onto you could throw you into either the pessimism when you are the optimism, or when you are the optimist, you suddenly end up becoming the pessimist because of the quality and weight of the damage that has been caused to your emotional being.
It is possible, but if you're an optimist, you're most likely to survive whatever the circumstances. There is something that you need, there is something positive in your system that will cope But if you're pessimistic and somebody has damaged you, that's the worst case scenario. My husband is very optimistic. He will never, even if he lost money, he will just come back 10 minutes, he's back on his track. So he doesn't see things negatively. That's how he is. So if he went through a divorce, he will think about solutions. It's just like business makers, those who are risk takers and those who are risk averse. Even in relationship, you're going to find people who can take risks in a relationship and those who can't. So even if you had so many support networks, finances, home security, and you're pessimists, it may not be possible to move on. But the other thing I've just put in the comments over there, in London, every borough has a talking therapy and you get 6 sessions for free.
So talking therapy, do you just speak to anyone? Is it a counselor that you speak to? Or?
Yes, when you call the number, every borough has it. When you call the number, you specify what you need. And you get 6 sessions. But we Africans tend not to use it. For me, I used it because I didn't have my Senga, I didn't have my Koja, I didn't have my mom, I didn't have my Tata here.
And so you found it helpful?
Yeah, I said to myself, if my clients can use it, why not me? I don't have that support. I go home once a year for 4 weeks. That counseling is not enough. So I went for it, and the counselor was younger than me. When I first met her, I said, oh, what is she going to do? But she was the best.
Right.
So it's about using the resources we have since we've traveled. If you have the time, like you're in touch with your Senga and you have a good connection, that's well and good. But for me, I didn't have that connection with my Sengas.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Catherine. Let's bring in Sheikh Abbas Njiti here. Stay on the line, Catherine, so you might just come in back and forth. And Abdul Karim Mugabe Chitunzi, his hand is also up. Sheikh Abbas Njiti, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah to all of you viewers.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. As I said, to all of you, especially Dr. Kayira, I call you Dr. BBC man. I don't know if this is, I can express myself in English or in Uganda, and I don't know if you can hear me properly.
In Uganda, whichever you are comfortable with. This is the conversation. That's why we enjoy. If you can, whatever you feel comfortable, please roll with it.
It's a very good topic. First of all, thank you so much, because it happens to most of people, and if it hasn't happened, you don't know. You keep on prayers, but because it can happen to you tomorrow. But in this kind of scenario, I think it depends. There are some people who plan for the divorce themselves, like they may see the smoke coming and they want to get out of that relationship as soon as possible. And then we have other people who they get the shock of the world, not expecting everything. You just even ordered a sofa in the sitting room for 3,000 pounds. And then she tell him that, look, my friend, it doesn't work. I've been trying so many times, but excuse me, it doesn't work. So you're going to be shown the door. Therefore, it depends. Secondly, is in the relationship. Do you have children in the relationship? Have you had the mortgage together? You had one account together? All this depends. For someone who the relationship without children and the relationship with no mortgage or one bank account, that one they end up, differently. It's no much crying and regretting, which is going to happen like in kids and whatever. But the most important thing here is it depends on someone. Especially, as I said, if you are planning to divorce, let's say I'm planning to divorce, I'm not going to be so much hurt than the other party. So if it's me, yes, I'll be hurt, especially if there are kids, but I have to stand firm And you know, I saw someone in the chat room was saying that the religion, and some few trusted friends will uplift you, which is true. We have so many friends like Abasi. I do have thousands, as you know, Dr. Kayira, we went to school together. But I have the ones I call my friends in the friends circle. Yes. Those one who can tell me, Sheikh Abbas, then you have the other ones that but when they go back, they say, I'm subject to. So, in Zamagezi Genari Wadabantu, Bovanga, go with them, go with Dorabanga, smoke is coming. You can't be easy. Definitely, you're gonna miss your kids when you go in one room. We have been there. You had about 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. You have your kids. You have but then now you're moving in one room and you are sharing with other people. Some of them they play music. You want to sleep and for them it's just in the day it has just opened. It's not gonna be easy. Even sitting alone, eating the food, and you have your kids down there is very hard, but you have to stand. You have to stand as a man. I'm speaking on man's view, because I have seen one who never recovered when he got these kind of problems like we are talking about today. Yes. He looked outside. He was my friend, a Ghanaian guy, and the way he was crying every day and thinking over every day, and I could wonder. I said, look, that was the only woman in his life, but that's it depends. He thought of no woman will trust ever since that time. So, but you have to think more and wider than that, because if it has happened, it has happened. You'll have to move on anyway. Otherwise, you're gonna walk talking, you're gonna sleep, waking up, dreaming as she's coming, and so on. So you have to move on. That's why I like Islam for those who can afford. That if you have at least more than one, then if it happens, at least you could.
You have a plan B. You have a plan B. It's not.
That's right. Yes, that's very, very good. So, Noreto, it depends on you. If you've been straight, keep on straight, and look for something which will entertain you. Like if you have a chance of working more days than we have jobs and you work 4 days or 5 days, and if you have a chance
you do extra shifts.
Extra shift that will take you, because why? What you need is to have a good sleep. You need to come home, shower, get something quick, and sleep. And this sleep will depend on what you've been doing in that shift all the day. Yeah. Otherwise, you're gonna be thinking of now. Then other people, they don't let it go. You're gonna think of this lady, she's bringing money into your house, and you think, and you're not gonna sleep and thinking about it. And so maybe you what about Tamburani Mukwano? She could be walking with her friend. Hey, the male one. So you should just leave it. So
just the assumption of rose anti kakati enyumba gyetubadde tubeeramu obudiri bwembadde mbeeramu entebe mwembadde neyagalira. All of a sudden you have a new occupant.
That's correct.
Psychologically, which is defeating your level of enjoyment and even understanding.
Yeah, but it depends. If you've been if it was a mortgage, both of you, it had so much. It had so much.
What did it
Rose and Buddy.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Abbas Ndwichi. Abdul Karim Chitunzi, assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Sheikh Abbas Ndwichi. Very fantastic presentation on that.
Thank you.
Abdul Karim Chitunzi.
Walaikum salam, Keke.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Yes, we are talking about moving on, the ability to move away from the past. And actually, we have concentrated so much on relationship breakup, divorces, and so on. I would love someone probably to bring in an experience on losing a partner. You've probably lost a husband, or you've lost a wife, and how you begin, because I'm sure in the conversation tonight, we've got friends, and colleagues who have gone through that, who are, in the heat of it. What sort of advice would you have for the person? Where do you even start from? Again, that sort of advice would be quite handy. So Chitunzi, you have the mic. Your take on tonight's conversation.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but what I would think most participants have really said it. But what I would say is you need to first evaluate yourself before you think of moving on. Was it your fault? Was it the other party's fault? And you need to get out of this cycle of acceptance, denial, annoyance. You need to find a line whereby if it was your fault, what do you have to do so that if you are to get into a new relationship, that you won't do it again? But if you play the blame game, or the man was harsh, or he was this, then if you get into a new relationship, the same old cycle would get you there. So to me, I would suggest that it's better you find your level and let the past go and move on. Because if you keep in denial, you're not helping yourself. At the end of the day, it's more miserable staying alone, regardless of material things you had made with someone. We just here to make money. And you don't ask a man, where did the money go? Because you can have it and it can go. That's the mindset you should have. So to any person who is within that cycle, just stand up and decide, get a partner who will make you happy and you feel you can fit in, then life will be better.
Fantastic. Briefly put and nice. So to whom is it easier to move on? Is it easier for women or for men? That's another question that we were asking tonight. I wonder what your take is.
I think regardless of the sex, but anyone can move on, because it depends on how you know me, my perception, what I think about relationship is not so much embedded into that, or you're more than my brother, or you're more than my sister. I've just found you just 5 or 10 years. So I don't put it into my mind that without you, life can't go on, That's the
but those are the things. Those are the things that we say to each other when we are chatting up, people.
No, I think that's.
I love you until Lake Victoria dries.
Yeah, that's not. I don't think that's normal, because at the end of the day, the family is more than anyone. Because I've just seen you. If you wake up tomorrow and you say, "Well, I don't feel you anymore," I should really understand. It may not be easy, but I should be able to understand why is he or she saying she can't feel me anymore. Then give her space. If you can't reconcile the relationship, then let it go. Because fighting it won't yield any happiness. Yeah.
Very understandable. That's absolutely clear. More than clear. Yeah, so and where do we go from there? How do you make yourself happy? Because having gone through that difficult time, whether it's a bereavement or it's a divorce, how do you make the best of the next life? Because actually we are now getting into the last 10 minutes of our conversation, and we are looking at moving on now. How do you make the best of what you have that is new? How would we make the best of what we have?
Avenues are, because mostly what angers most of us is the material things, the house, the car, the what. But it's about the mental capacity you have, that, I can stand up and work again and buy a new car for myself. So once you have that pedigree to wake up and stand up, then you can move on. But other options, you don't need to close yourself. If you have a friend, talk to him or her. If you have access to therapy, go for it. Go out to the gym, you know, get engaged, you know.
Spread it out, yes.
Yeah, but speak it out, because we come here to this forum, not that we have time, but it's a therapy. People come out and talk. So if you keep it to yourself, you're still angering yourself. So, but at the end of the day, it's better to forget the past and find the right person and move on, because you're not gonna die a miserable life unless if it's a choice.
Thank you very much, Abdul Karim Chitunzi. Fantastic presentation there. And Joy Mutesi says, thank you for that point of self-reflection. Another mistake we make is getting into another relationship when we are still vulnerable. Yes, actually, that's very true. Because with the vulnerability, what happens is because you feel that you want to, you know, I've lost out there. I can't just be, you know, Sisemba na Joe. You jump into a new relationship, probably without even addressing what the problem was in the first relationship. You're already jumping into a new relationship. And she says, because we will make wrong choices at that point. When you are vulnerable, chances are you'll just fall into whoever comes, because it's the cuddle that you're so desperate to have. You get the cuddle and then you get hurt once more. Thank you very much, Chitunzi, and thanks, Dave Mutesi, for that message. Mayanja, go ahead. Abdul, I think you went off. You're trying to get the kids off bed. You are back, and we are in our last 10 minutes now, 7 minutes to go now. Yes, we are looking forward now. How do we make the best of the new life that we are trying to get ourselves into?
Yes, I'm sorry, I got so interrupted with the kids, and
no, that was perfectly fine. It was their time, and we had interrupted with it a little bit.
Yes, so I just want to go back where one of the lady who mentioned about going to a professionalism about in marriage. For me, I looked in the other way perspective that professionalism starts with you as a inner person. Everything you do starts with you before you even seek out more information outside there, because there's a lot of information. It's like you go on the internet and put in Google and searching so many things. Most of the time you might find very useful information. Sometimes you might not find very useful information. So it's in you whereby you come up like, hey, how am I going to do this? It's something why the last year that you move on. Most of the time, if you look at it, like the way he mentioned, people, you find yourselves like you have grown up and stuff like that. There's what we call cultural differences. When you look at cultural differences, whereby you grow up in different categories, in different areas, different background and stuff like that, you come up with someone you've met when you are like here, 30 years or 20 years. Putting up things together, if you don't be careful, is so tough and hard. But things can work out if you find both of your interests and interests and likes and dislikes. Then you try to bond. You come up with big solutions and make a family. That's how life is. It has to move on. So the other solution of like, hey, you move on and move on. If like everybody's gonna move on and move on, people will be moving on up and down like fine.
We might crash into each other now as we try to move up and down, literally.
Exactly. So the best way is like, one thing I found out in relationship, sometimes there's not something wrong or right, meaning that you need to come out. Don't say if I've done something wrong with my wife, don't think that, hey, my Anja, I'm right, you are wrong. No, it's a matter of sitting down, discussing with all solutions together and make things work together. Otherwise, if you don't work out things like that, everybody in every family has they have a lot of misguidance, misinformation, everything. But at the end of the day, it's sitting down. How can we make things work? Then the moment you realize your mistakes, and like, here, yes, I agree. This is my mistake. If I go back in the other side of background and cultural differences, if I go back in Uganda, one thing they did, that's why sometimes I disagree. Some of few things in Baganda, like whereby they make people to get scared. Like A woman does not eat goat. Who tells you? A woman doesn't, I don't know, like in Islam, what it says, there she can help us, but whereby a woman cannot eat grasshopper, a woman cannot eat, it's kind of making them to have that fear in them, not like a nyamayange or something like that. Or that's fear. They put fear in them so that our mothers and our sisters, they leave them back so that they don't have any argument to bring up. So if you look at it like that, unless anybody says that we have to go back in that category, which is absolutely wrong, and we have to move on forward, especially this generation whereby things are put on the table. We discuss so many things, this technology, kids and stuff like that. So I think at the end of the day with the relationship, we have to sit down, discuss, make things work out, and move life. If you see the Western culture, people who have been enjoying the relationship, those are like the Bazungu, whereby they get their loved ones when they're still in high school. They grow up together. They grow up until they die because they're younger. They see they are neighbors, all kind of connection, which we had back days in Uganda, but these days they don't work out. You find someone in America, you find someone in London, you find someone in anywhere on the streets, are like, hey, I'm picking you. You're picking someone you don't know. So that's why this stuff, as I always say, it's a tough topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayanja. And yes, we have been trying to navigate through that tough topic, and I think we have reached somewhere. But I think the most important thing, probably as we begin wrapping up the program tonight, Sarah SS, if you can come on, please. We'd just like to hear your own view. You've been on from the start of the conversation. It would be interesting just to hear your talk as we begin wrapping up. But I think to me, as we set out on this particular topic, I was looking at people who have been in relationships, and then sometimes you find yourself totally stuck, unable to move on. And that can be actually very, very inhibitive and very limiting. We only have one life. Make it matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us options. And these options mean that we can actually make use of them. As long as we make use of them, you can actually thrive in life. Religion, people have mentioned faith, the faith aspects. Going down to God and sort of, asking for his intervention, for his help in matters that are not working. But also having a conversation with your partner, very, very important, to the point that even if you go to a point of disagreement, at least you can sort of go your separate ways, but with a lot of respect for each other. Respect, because we can say love has run out. We have really finished the fuel that was running on our relationship. But it is important that at least we have respect for one another as you go your separate ways. There might be children, there might be those other shared values. They are shared friends. You can't lose these friends because you've broken up. And these are all very important things. But importantly for you, the person that is going to try to move on, could there have been mistakes? Could there have been things in the past, in your own past, that contributed to this particular situation? How do you get yourself ready for that? Because otherwise you're going to commit the same mistakes. And there are people who are out there, people who have been in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 relationships, looking so committed and devoted to these relationships, and then for some reason it doesn't work. I'm not a relationship counselor, but at least you can see there are particular things that we can practically do. Just like we fall in love, we can fall out of love. Once you get it, make the best of it. At least one thing that you shouldn't regret is, I didn't give it enough. If you give it your best, then you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If, for example, you have lost a spouse, which happens, everything happens for a reason. God has brought it into your life, but he has also provided. For example, in the context of Islam, if you lose a husband, you're going to sit your Iddah 4 months, 10 days. 4 months, 10 days, the essence is to make sure that at least you've gone through 3 cycles, through 3 menstrual cycles. It's not months, but rather 3 menstrual cycles, to ensure that, 1, you're not pregnant from your previous relationship, but then beyond that, that period also allows, for example, the distribution of the property so that you can get your own share from the relationship that you've had, and then you can start moving on. It's not an easy one, but probably, with everything that God has brought to us, there is a reason. These reasons are very, very important. Some of them might not be known to us because that's within the confines of God's knowledge. But for those things that we can do, definitely we can do the best that we can. And I can only thank you very much for a very beautiful program tonight. Difficult topic, like some of you said, yet we managed to navigate. We are still here, which means we can still do it. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. It's of course a learning curve. You can never say that you have said it all, but for everybody who has contributed tonight, either, by coming on the mic and speaking, but also if you just were there and contributing through the chat room or even listening in, I think you can only say thank you very, very much for a very, very good program. Inshallah, let's do it again next week when we meet again with a different topic altogether. I can say thank you very much and have a very, very good night wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you next week. Thank you for being and keeping it 75W Radio and Ummah Connect on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi